Roll up to your own place expecting nothing but quiet water and that pine wind you grew up with, and instead, bam, there's a luxury resort sprouting out of your lake like you never even existed. Yeah, that happened to me. I'm talking about steel beams, 3 stories high, welders throwing sparks, the whole works. No. How do you do? Not even a head nod. Just strangers tearing up Remington Lake like it was their personal sandbox, all with the smug blessing of a so-called HOA president who thought she could bulldoze a Remington and rewrite a century of land rights overnight. Well, spoiler alert, the law was older than her lies, and when the truth finally surfaced, it cost her $3 million and every ounce of fake authority she ever tried to steal. Let me back up a sec. 96 days gone. That's how long I'd been away, long enough for the snow line to creep down, for the cabins to dry out, for me to start thinking maybe nothing ever changes back home. So I turn off the old gravel road, expecting nothing but that familiar groan of the ranch gate and the lazy shadows of the pines. But instead, first thing I see is steel, not a fence, not a trailer. A damn skeleton of a building shooting up where my meadow used to spill out toward the lake. Welders' cranes, diesel smoke drowning out the clean mountain air. I just stood there, boots planted in the dirt, looking at the chaos and thinking, what in God's name happened here? Remington Lake, my grandfather's lake, the one he swore I'd protect, was buried under noise and metal. A giant vinyl sign slapped above the racket. Crystal Shores luxury retreat coming soon. You gotta be kidding me. So I head for the shoreline, stomping past piles of lumber and a backhoe chewing its way toward the water. Strangers everywhere walking around like they own the place, not a single one bothering to ask who I am or what I'm doing on my own damn property. And then, as if on cue, a white SUV slides to a stop, shiny as a magazine ad, clearly allergic to real dirt. Out steps this woman in a tailored jacket and boots that had never seen a muddy day in their life. Blonde hair, polished smile, waving like we're old friends at a wine tasting. "Morning," she chirps. I'm standing there not smiling, just trying to wrap my head around the circus happening on my shoreline. "You planning to tell me why your people are tearing up my land?" I ask. She flashes a smile like she's selling me a timeshare, introduces herself as Bethany Sterling, president of the Lake Beautification Committee, which is rich considering there's never been such a committee, not until today. She taps away at her tablet, tells me they're forming the HOA and that it's long overdue, that the county is thrilled that my family's lake is about to be invested in. I don't even look at her screen. "This land isn't yours to invest in," I say, but she's already pointing at the construction, rattling off nonsense about updated mapping and how this stretch of shoreline now falls inside the HOA's jurisdiction. Progress, she calls it. Progress. All I see is my grandfather's legacy being sliced apart for a fake community improvement project. And then it hits me, this isn't some mix-up. It's not incompetence. It's a strategic, deliberate. Somebody changed the maps. Somebody faked a county survey, slid my land right under their umbrella, and started building before anybody could say squat. And the longer I stand there, the more obvious it becomes that Bethany isn't afraid of me, isn't worried about the law. She's got backup, real or imagined, from the county, the sheriff, maybe half the damn town. I storm off, head straight for the construction plans spread out by a group of workers. The foreman, clipboard and all, tells me the land is cleared for development. I flip through the blueprints, spot a survey map that smells more like a Xerox than anything real, with boundaries moved 300 feet inward, carving out my cove and stamping it HOA property. I take the survey. "You can't," he says. "It's stolen land," I reply, walking off before he can sputter an answer. But truth has a way of finding you when you're not ready. As I get back to my truck, Glacier County Sheriff rolls up. Marcus Hale. I've known him since I was a kid. He steps out, crisp uniform look of apology mixed with the usual authority. Tells me the HOA filed a complaint that I'm interfering with a permitted project. He hands me a restraining order on my own ranch. Tells me to work it out through legal channels. I pocket the notice not because I accept it, but because every piece of this crooked puzzle will help me take the whole thing down. I'm boiling. I need an ally, someone not scared to go toe-to-toe with county politics. That's when I remember Sarah Whitfield, attorney, tough as iron. I drive to her office, lay the fake survey out on her desk. She doesn't even flinch. "Signature's not Annette's," she says. "Annette Glay, the county planner, whose name's been rubber-stamped on every permit. These property lines are pure fiction. Sarah tells me to gather evidence to move fast. Every hour they build, it gets harder to stop. My phone buzzes. Neighbor Ron says they're hauling prefab cabins onto the lake, turning my cove into a floating village. When I get back to the ranch, it's a circus: floating cabins, barge ramps, engines roaring, saw blades screaming. I film everything, knowing time's running out. I confront Bethany again. She's standing on a scaffold, sunglasses flashing, looking for all the world like a queen surveying her kingdom. I demand answers. She hands me another document, thicker this time, stamped and signed, a temporary injunction. You violate this, the sheriff arrests you, she says. I look at my own shoreline, my own water, my family's land, now declared a no-go zone by a woman who's never even smelled lake mud in her life. And then the real gut punch: my neighbors Linda and Bill standing by the fence, nervous. Bethany says, "You're blocking progress, Jake," they say. She's got them convinced the maps were corrected, that my grandfather's markers are outdated. She's not just stealing land, she's dividing the community, promising jobs and prosperity while rewriting history in real time. But I know where the truth is buried, literally. The ridge above the lake where my grandfather hammered in the original boundary markers is where I go next. Sure enough, I find the brass markers under gravel and river stones, buried but unmoved. I take photos, shoot video, send everything to Sarah. If they buried markers, it's felony tampering, she says. We can collapse their whole case. Word travels fast. The county planner, Annette, shows up. I ask if she signed the survey. She squirms, admits she took the HOA's documents at face value, never checked the original markers. When I show her the evidence, her hands shake. If there's tampering, I have to freeze the permits, she says, finally waking up to how deep she's in. Sarah finds more. The HOA filed my property into their district, illegally added me as a non-responsive member. I never signed, never agreed. This is systematic land theft, not just trespass. The next day, Tom Bennett, retired federal surveyor, tough old bird, shows up. Heard you needed a second pair of eyes, he says. With his GPS, we prove they moved my boundary inward 17 feet. Enough to fake the survey, enough to grab my dock, enough to look legal. But I need the final weapon. A clause my grandfather once mentioned, a reversion clause buried in the original water rights agreement. I tear through old files, find the brittle sheet from 1950. Any commercial development without written consent of the Remington landholder triggers full reversion of all structures to county ownership. Bethany didn't just steal my land. She built her whole empire on a ticking time bomb. Sarah's ecstatic. This is the nuke. Her whole project voids the moment she marketed those rentals online. We prep the evidence, lock everything down. Then the cherry on top, Pete the foreman comes forward. Says he saw Bethany's crew bury the markers, watched her doctor the surveys, and he's willing to sign an affidavit. Suddenly, we're not just fighting back. We're about to crush them. Bethany tries to bluff, but the next morning at the courthouse, it's all over. Sarah lays out the binder: fraudulent surveys, buried markers, illegal construction reversion clause. The judge reads it all, takes off his glasses, and declares the entire Crystal Shores project illegal. All structures revert immediately to county ownership. The HOA is fined $3 million for fraud, environmental harm, and filing false documents. You should have seen Bethany's face. Outrage, panic, and then nothing. She's escorted out, shouting about progress and vision and how I'm just a relic. It's sacred, I say, and for once the room listens. By the next day, the lake is quiet. The cabins stand empty, construction abandoned. Tom marks the real boundaries, survey flags lining the shore like stitches on a healing wound. Neighbors drift over, some apologizing, some just standing in awe that we'd actually won. This land doesn't need walls or gates or a luxury price tag, I tell them. It needs people who know what it means to keep it free. As the sun sets gold on the water, I promise to restore everything she tried to erase. The cabins will become retreats for veterans. The lake stays open, wild, uncommodified. Justice for once isn't just a word. It's the land returning to those who defend it. So here's what I learned: power and money, they can bend rules, twist maps, buy silence. But truth, the kind you can dig up with your own hands, that's harder to bury. And sometimes the fight isn't just for your land, but for everyone watching, wondering if it's still possible to beat the machine. Now tell me, where do you draw the line? Is it at your fence, your family's name, your sense of right and wrong? Drop your thoughts below, stories, questions, whatever you've got. Because if you've ever stood your ground against someone who thought they could take what's yours, you know justice tastes a hell of a lot like freedom. And if stories like this get your blood going, stick around. I've got more grit, more truth, and a lot more real American justice coming your way.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.